Good afternoon or evening, everyone, depending on which side of the country you're on. Thank you for coming tonight. And I'm Betty Fox, ADAA president. And the purpose of this town hall is to discuss how we can make ADAA a better, more efficient and effective organization that dental assistants want to be a part of. I've had the opportunity to work with 712 management this year, and they're helping us change our cumbersome governance infrastructure. We need to simplify the process and procedures that make it easier for our members to allow them to serve in leadership positions in ADAA. Our executive director, Jay Casper, is with us this evening, along with our associate executive director, Amy Liccato. They're both here with us tonight. And Molly Alton Mullins is the CEO of 712 Management. And she also serves as the general manager for ADAA, where she works with both Jay and Amy and the rest of the ADAA staff and the ADAA leadership team. Molly is actively involved in our strategic planning, financial oversight, and the governance infrastructure, and she'll be presenting the bylaws proposal this evening to us. Our time will be limited to 1 hour, so hold your questions and comments to the end, please. And would like for those members who have not had the opportunity to discuss these, ask your questions first, and everyone will have a 2-minute time limit, and then you'll be muted again, and then we'll go on to the next person. So that way everybody has an opportunity to speak. And hopefully we can get all the questions answered during our time frame. And we'll also have a bylaws reference committee meeting at the annual session. So plan on being there to attend that as well. So I will turn the meeting over to Miss Molly Mullins at this time.
Thank you, Betty, and thank you guys for taking your time on a Thursday evening to hear about the ever so exciting bylaws. Not the most riveting topic, but hopefully we can explain a little bit of the method to the madness and the understanding behind it and the proposed changes, so you can understand the future direction of ADAA and really where we're trying to take the organization and what opportunities are in front of you. As Betty mentioned, I am the CEO here at 712 Management. I've been doing association management for 20 years, and what I focus primarily on in my job is governance structures and the strategic oversight that makes organizations improve. You know, trade associations, as you guys know, they're in an interesting time in their lives. They're not, younger generations don't join them just because their parents did or because they feel an obligation to. They need to get something out of it. They need to see a value, and they need to feel as if they belong and that they're part of it. And I see this, we manage 14 full service associations. I've worked with hundreds more in my career, and I see this time and time again. What is the sense of community? How can I get involved? How do I belong? And that's how you keep a member year after year after year. So what we really try to look at is what is it that brings people to ADAA and how do we capitalize on that? And that from a strategic standpoint, that's what we're trying to do at the leadership level, is really rethink what the organization offers, who it's appealing to, where we're finding the right individuals, and really how do we make the organization as financially healthy as possible. In order to accomplish those goals, you got to look and see where your infrastructure is first. So since 712 has been a part of ADAA in March, we have had a lot of activities related to database management, website infrastructure, really looking at your bones and making sure that they're healthy. And there's been a lot that's needed to be repaired. There's been a lot that our company has been able to streamline and implement for you all so that it is a more modernized process. It is more direct billing. It's a lot more just processes that'll help you collect the revenues that you need. You know, I always look at it and say, you wouldn't paint a wall that has cracks in it. You first want to plaster that, sand it down, and make sure that it's strong and healthy, and then it's going to be beautiful. And that's really what we need to make sure that we're doing for ADAA as well. So with that, I look at your bylaws. It's, the background of how organizations start and how they're run. And it's really helpful, or in certain times, not helpful for organizations in strategic growth. Bylaws were created to protect the members and protect the leadership of an organization. That is their goal. But you want to make sure that you're having some fluidity so that as an organization, you can grow and evolve as your industry grows and evolves. You know, one of the hardest things that you see is a new opportunity out there, but if it's not in accordance with the bylaws, you can't go after it. Well, why not? Where is that disconnect happening and why? So what we've really done is kind of look at the structure of ADAA and say, not, we don't need a governance structure because every organization does, you need to protect yourselves, but how can we allow it to evolve and how can we make it improve for the organization? So that's kind of overall where we were from a strategic planning standpoint. To Betty or Jay or Amy, anything you'd like to add in relation to that in some of the conversations that we've had?
Just that it's a really exciting time. There are going to be a lot of changes, suggested changes to help the efficiency of the association, both in process and involving members in the decision-making process. So I approach this with an open mind. And if you have any questions, again, save them till the end, but we're absolutely happy to answer those questions.
And I am going to share my screen to share the bylaws draft with you all. We are not going to go through this point by point, but I'm going to talk to you in each section on really what our top line reasons are, our top line goals, really what some of the changes might be, and how that'll affect the overall health of the organization. I believe more than anything, and anyone who's worked with me on this call knows, I believe in being transparent. I don't like to hide things. I don't like to have sidebar conversations. I like to really tell clients and people that I work with like it is. And I will tell you that ADAA is in a very financially precarious position right now. And you are losing members, you are losing money. COVID hit the organization and didn't help things. And so what I'm trying to make sure we're doing is that we're stopping the bleeding and reversing this trend, because I want this organization to exist 5 years from now. And at this current pace, it will not. So what is it that we need to be changing structurally that allow for long-term success? And I've done this, and I can tell you what works and really what helps. And really having the governance structure to allow those activities to occur is what we need to do first and foremost. All right, let me share my screen. All right, beautiful draft of ADA bylaws. You will see that the structure in which it's outlined is very similar to your previous bylaw structure. If anyone wants to review those at any point, you can find those on the ADAA website right here. You go under About, and you can see ADAA bylaws if you want to review what's currently on your website and what's listed. I was looking through that earlier today, just as somewhat of a comparative. Going through these a little bit, you know, I'll just touch on some top things. Your location has changed here now. Your objectives, really still what you're doing as an organization. Really to the mission and focus of what ADAA is. Your organizational structure. You'll notice small changes in things like this, like wording that says the association may consist of. And the reason we've changed language like that is because it could change. State associations could morph into something else. Components could be renamed something. You could have different reasons for different desires within additional segments of the industry that you really want to become a part of ADAA. So instead of saying the association will consist of these things, it allows you that opportunity for growth. It allows you that opportunity to try new things and attract new members and see if it fits into your strategic portfolio of what the organization wants to accomplish. So those are the little type of nuanced changes that you'll see throughout the language. And again, these are your structure right now, and these didn't change, but it gives you that opportunity to grow in the future. I'm not going to go into the specifics of all of them. Again, maybe organizing geographical areas, you know, those are the types of significant changes with those. Your federal section's a part of this, your student chapters are still a part of this, and how they're represented within the organization. With my photos here. For membership. Again, membership shall include those individuals who support the organization, regardless of diversity. It gives you that opportunity to look at this and say, yeah, you know, maybe instead of having just a straight professional membership category, we want to divide it on X, or maybe you want to sunset international members and just make that a part of your professional membership. It gives your membership committee and your membership structure that opportunity to evaluate what the marketplace is, not what the marketplace was, because that's why you're losing members, is because that marketplace doesn't look the same. People are retiring, your life members, what kind of dues structure do you have? None of that needs to be in your bylaws. All that needs to be within your leadership to make those strategic decisions based on the financial health of the organization. All right. So all your memberships are listed here. And again, they're varied a little bit, but it gives you that opportunity for fluidity. Your dues section is your Article 5. Essentially, it's your dues structure. It's just not limited to actual price point or evaluation, because your leadership, it needs the opportunity to adjust dues as they see fit based on the financial marketplace. In a year like COVID, if they wanted to do a 20% reduction, they should have the strategic power to do that as a majority. If they decide it's time to raise dues because the organization's offering more benefits and services, that is the strategic oversight of a board of directors or board of trustees. And they're the ones who should be taking the information from the members, from your membership committees, and making those strategic decisions without being hamstrung by bylaw provisions that prohibit that. Your board of trustees. The biggest change in it, and it's a little clearer if I mention it now, is moving from a board House of Delegate structure to a board General Assembly structure. And what I mean by that is moving to a voting process where every member votes, every member has a voice, and they're voting for one elected body of leadership, which is your board of trustees. That is your governing body that is active every day, dealing with the committees, dealing with the members, dealing with us as staff. They're the ones who know everything that's happening and are really have that involvement. They have representations from each of the states. That structure is still part of it. They have their executive committee leadership, and they're really the ones governing the organization. I will tell you that that is the structure that I see in 98.2% of all boards that I know, is one governing body, because it makes strategic sense to be able to implement and get things done. So you'll see your composition there. Nothing really changes. We updated things to more electronic, and those options, obviously, with everything that changes. We have quorum stated, all of that, so no need for us to go through all those details. Again, we talked about the executive committee. They have the opportunity to call special meetings. They have the opportunity to invite guests to those meetings as non-voting participants, but really it's their job to be strategic for the organization. You'll look at officers, and I'll give you an example of a change here. Eligibility, previously in the bylaws, it was very specific. Has to spend 3 years on this committee and 2 years here, and that weeds out great candidates, because maybe somebody did 6 years somewhere, or maybe they've joined the industry and they're a dynamo and you want them engaged. Maybe they're from a state that's underrepresented, but maybe they're just dipping their toe into it. Doesn't mean you need to make them president right away, but you want to have the opportunity to engage them where you feel they fit best. So making comments here like should have served in leadership capacities still means that's what you're looking for and what your nominating committee is going to be, vetting candidates against, but it's not the only thing in the end all be all. So those are the types of changes that you'll see in things like that. Your terms, your vacancies, all that is remained very similar. Your districts have remained the same here. I would say that in future years, and I said this to leadership, we might want to look at that, because a lot of times there's vacancies and we can't find candidates to fill them. So do we want to combine a few more, or do at-large memberships or at-large leadership posts or things like that to maybe augment? It's something I think we want to think about. You have the opportunity that if you don't have anybody from the 4th district, you can appoint someone from the 5th. That's written in here. But you want to try to really look at that and see where the need is and where the availability lie. All this just really spells out eligibility and being in good standing and that sort of thing. Nothing too crazy here. For the trustees themselves, it's people that either live in that state or work in that state, so you want them to be a part of it. But then it goes into a little bit about your student trustees and your federal trustees and all that sort of stuff. What happens for terms of office? Again, all of this is pretty routine and certainly not worthy of me wasting your time going through it. Vacancies, again, I just mentioned that a little bit. If you have a vacancy, you have the option to appoint someone as the board, but some of them leave blank. It's a lot of semantics in there that I don't think we really need. You can certainly read at a later date. Your councils and committees, again, some fluidity here. The following councils are approved by the Board of Trustees and shall exist, but are not limited to. So if we decide to present another committee opportunity because an industry need exists, it allows us that opportunity to grow. But obviously these committees and councils are a cornerstone of what you do. So they're what's in existence now. You know, your membership, your education, your governance, all that sort of stuff. Your finance, that's really, you know, what is the fiduciary responsibility there, your fiscal year, that sort of thing. This is a new indemnification policy here. It's simply more robust at a protection for the leadership. Our legal counsel has drafted this. I use this for all of my clients, and it's fully protection for our volunteers, because you are giving your time and your talent, and we want to make sure that, God forbid, I've never seen it happen in my career, not one, but if something did arise, we want to make sure that ADAA is protecting you. Devolution, hoping that never happens, outlines parameters, what ADAA would have to do with any ancillary funds, that, and also by state associations. There's, you know, we've talked a bit on the leadership level about really kind of cleaning up the chapter element moving forward at some point, you know, who's dissolved, who isn't, who, you know, there's some backlogs, really just ironing out that system a little bit better so that the chapters, the states, everyone's working a little bit better together with national on all of that. But that's a little further, that's more a strategic goal after we're communicating some more. Amendments, you know, Board of Trustees can amend the bylaws, but not related to their own terms of service and things like that. So that's very standard. You can make changes about, you know, propose changes to the membership on other things, but you can't say, I'm president right now and I can serve on limited terms. So those are the type of stipulations that are in there to protect the organization, but give the opportunity to amend at some point you decide to make changes. Discipline, you know, how you would discipline a particular member, appeals, all that sort of good stuff. And then what the notification process is, which is important and very warranted should that need ever arise. Hopefully, I can't anticipate it would, but you want to have that in there. So, you know, overall, the biggest real change is really that General Assembly element that I talked to, given the opportunity for membership categories to evolve, your councils to evolve, give you those fluidity on what those duties are. And one of the things that have been brought up to me was the question about, you know, an annual session. And I think a meeting of members is a phenomenal part of an association, and something we can easily put in here, that a meeting of members can be called from, you know, as deemed appropriate by the Board of Trustees. You know, you do your you review your nominations, you review your minutes, you get an update on the organization. That's the real value in your time. That's really what you need to be a part of in offering your comments and services. So, you know, there's certainly things that we can always do that don't necessarily have to be in the bylaws. So just, you know, those are the kind of comments that I, you know, hope we can think about. Is this doesn't mean there aren't programs that are important and are launched in the works and all that sort of stuff. There just doesn't need it to be a procedural outline to it that's affixed to the bylaws. So I tried to do that as top level and quickly as I could so we could have time for questions and all of that. I guess with that, I think, Betty, we had mentioned that everyone is muted right now. So, you know, if you want to make a comment, you can, you know, raise your hand on either through Zoom or on the screen, and Betty's going to call on you, and I'll be happy to try to answer it, or Jay or Amy or anything like that to answer your questions. Stop sharing.
Okay, I've unmuted myself because I can't find my hand.
No problem.
Just state your name, please.
Kim Arney.
Okay. Go ahead. What was your question?
Actually, I have a bunch. So I read the revisions and the notations, and then I went back to the Board of Trustees minutes, and I definitely see that there's an issue with forms, and that should obviously be addressed so that we can better function.
An issue, I'm so sorry, Kim, I didn't hear that. An issue with what?
Forums. Forums.
Gotcha.
You know, how many people you have to conduct business? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I didn't, when I was looking at the Board of Trustees minutes, I couldn't find any reference to the revision, even from the bylaws committee. So my question is, number one, who had input when this revision was done? Or who decided it would be done?
The quorum provision in particular?
The whole thing. I know and you're going to hate this part, but I know in the bylaws, there is a process to do a revision, usually directed by a president, which is fine, or the House of Delegates, which it just doesn't seem like it's being done as it's directed to be done. And I couldn't find anything in the board minutes that they had worked on it. I didn't say anything with the bylaws committee and their reports that they had done anything with it. So who had input when this revision was done?
Sure. So I worked with leadership on these bylaws to revise based off kind of, best practices on really where some of the issues I saw. We have talked that the vote, if you follow procedure, the vote would go to the House of Delegates to make revisions to the bylaws. These would be further reviewed, and then a special session would be called in order to vote and implement, in order to follow current procedure within your established bylaws right now.
Okay, and this is Molly speaking, correct?
This is Molly.
Okay, so you did it with input from the board?
Correct. I did it with input from leadership, with Betty and with Sue, Jay, and leadership. Yes.
Okay, has the board as a whole voted on it?
We haven't voted on it. We've reviewed it, and our goal is to share it with the membership, again, for transparency, to get as much information and feedback as we can.
And it has gone through bylaws? Bylaws committee?
It has not. It will go to the House of Delegates, that they will be reviewed and voted on to be edited by the bylaws committee.
So in my opinion, that is out of order. But then my suggestion, and I will make this at the House, would be to have our new president direct the committee to revise rather than throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And part of it is the strength of our association is in the relationships that we've created when trying to do the things within government that we are passionate about. We want to have a voice. So if we're not having House of Delegates and we're just voting on the leadership, where is our voice in the process? I don't understand that. And you had referenced missed opportunities. What missed opportunities had been missed because of the bylaws? I've served on the Board of Trustees. I didn't find the bylaws daunting, and actually we most often use the manual of procedures because it gives you more ability to function.
Kim, your time is
and
up.
Maybe that's where we should be. I'm sorry, what was it?
Your time is up, your 2-minute time limit.
Okay, can I finish that statement here?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think maybe the MOP needs to be revised by the current officers and the incoming officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for that feedback. The goal is to grow ADAA. The goal is to minimize procedures that hinder ability. I have sat on numerous board calls, and your time is wasted on procedure and policy and does this fit and does this work, where instead we should be talking about what new members can we attract? What strategies can we use to reach out to dental schools? What are some new benefits and services that we're not utilizing yet? That's what a board needs to be doing. And that's the focus that we need to be looking at from a strategic input perspective. That's how you grow. That's how staff learns more about your industry so that we can run and implement it, because you guys don't have time for that. That's our job. And by spending countless times on procedure, we're missing the game. ADAA lost $100,000 last year. You can't do that. You can't survive and keep doing that. So what we need to be doing is spending our time figuring out those growth strategies, and that is the correct relationship between leadership and execution.
Next question. It's kind of hard to see. Jay, Amy, if y'all will help me. Anyone that has their hand raised?
Kathleen Meyer Butler, I don't know how to raise my hand,
Okay.
but my point is, if we're going to have a bylaws committee, the bylaw committee should actually be dealing with this, not just general town hall. The input is very, very important. And I don't, I'm not trying to say you're not doing it right, but nobody's done it right. I mean, let's face it, all of the ADA, the ADAA, the Indiana Dental Assistants, we're struggling to come up with people who are being recycled. But if you're trying to make bylaw committee changes, shouldn't the board direct that? And shouldn't the bylaw committee review that prior to this conversation? And now that you're talking about district changes and absorptions to allow everyone to vote, does that mean California gets 100% vote on Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois?
Everyone votes for every seat, yes. Just like everyone would vote for president.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Well, you know, I hope that my expertise and experience as someone who's written no less than 40 sets of bylaws, the opportunity is for you all to utilize my skill set so that you don't have to work your way through it. And you can use it as a model that's tested and true for your other organizations and base it off that. So that's my goal. And certainly input from the members from the bylaws committee, from leadership is important and been received from many of you. And I've got to tell you, we've heard lots of comments from general members that I've chosen not to get involved because there's a few people that run this organization and my voices aren't heard. And what we're trying to do is spread that so that members do feel more connected to ADAA. They do feel a part of the process. They do feel they get to vote for everyone. They do hear more information about what's going on, more is communicated with them, and they have the opportunity to join leadership. That you have calls for nominations, that you have people more involved on committees that are new. Part of the problem is ADAA structure demands a tremendous amount of volunteer time. You are not going to get a 33-year-old dental assistant to do that. She isn't. She's busy, she has family, she does not have time for that. So if you're going to make that structure that cumbersome, you're never going to engage that volunteer. So how do you utilize our staff and resources for execution? You all focus on strategies and you keep your calls to 45 minutes or less. That's how you're going to attract new members, and that's how you're going to attract new involvement. I think Carol has her hand out.
Yeah, Carol Walsh from Virginia. My question isn't about the bylaws, but it's something you said that really struck me. I thought we had trimmed, we had moved, we were doing good, and you stated we lost $100,000 last year, and that upsets me a lot. Because I thought we did the Zoom meetings, we didn't meet in person, we cut back, we moved the office. How did this happen?
The office was a big part of your expenses, and that did end last year. So thankfully for budgets moving forward, that liability is not there. That does definitely help. COVID was a factor in your membership. It certainly decreased those numbers. And in any business, I think everyone was affected by that in lots of ways. ADAA has lost $300,000 in 3.5 years. It is what our organization brings to the table is we have clients upwards of $2-3 million organizations that you cost share all of your programs and services with. So instead of paying for a phone line, 14 organizations pay for those phone lines. So it drops your cost significantly. Jay and I put together ADAA's budget for 2022, and you're in the black for the first time in a number of years. So that is the offerings that we're bringing to the table of more of a $100,000 swing in 1 year, because we know how to cost share in order to make an organization make money. So we're looking at that from a cash flow perspective. It's can be troubling, but that's why we want to ensure that we're in a structure to where we can attract, diversify, and recruit.
Like
Okay.
Rhonda has a hand up.
Diane?
Okay, yes, I have for a long time thought about opening up voting to the general membership. And by going to a general assembly rather than a House of Delegates, that's going to give all of the members in the organization an opportunity to vote for its officers. I'm in other organizations, and there are a lot of dental assisting instructors on this call, and they're probably members of the National Education Association, and we all get mail to vote for officers in that organization that we've never met. We read their bios, we decide who's best for the position based on the information we're given. So I'm thinking that that's the direction that ADAA probably should start going, to give everybody the opportunity, because it's been limited over the years that I've been a member to just the delegates. And the way that people have been getting elected is by who knows who. And then by the districts playing a big role in that. But I'm in favor of going to a general membership, and I'm in favor of, a general assembly, excuse me, and I'm in favor of having the voting power opened up to the general membership.
Thank
I
you.
guess I don't have a question, just a statement.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate your comment.
Rhonda has a hand up. Is that Rhonda Lane, maybe? Rhonda, if you're trying to talk, you're muted. Maybe you don't know your hand's up. Okay. Janda Bell had a hand up.
And I sent this message in, and it's really for you, Molly. How will changing the bylaws assist us in increasing membership? I need to see that, have that Sedgway explained to me, please.
Certainly, in a couple ways. And I'm going to be honest with you that this organization has been going in a direction for a long time. And in 6 months, we're righting this ship, and it takes time. So there's only so much that we can change that's been going in a particular direction for a period. So you've been losing members for year after year. Why is that? What is the retention strategy? That's first and foremost. You have 150,000 people in your constant contact. What's the recruitment strategy for those individuals? That was what our membership team is putting together for you. How do we work better with dental schools? What is that plan? I can't do any of that until the infrastructure is righted. I can't do any of that until we modernize the process to say, this is the other types of members we want to reach out to. These are the options that we have in the due structure, so that we change the procedural elements to allow for strategic growth. So it's all in stages and steps to fix what's been happening and to see where those prospects and opportunities lie. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So she didn't bother to ask, so I don't know. I don't know how much is there.
Hey, Kim, you're live, whatever comments you're making.
Kathy Roberts has her hand up too, Molly.
Hi. Part of my concern here, though, with the actual revision that's been presented is that, again, let me step back. I'm not opposed to going from a House of Delegates to a General Assembly. However, there is no provision in these proposed bylaws for that annual General Assembly meeting. It would be totally up to the board, and if the board chose not to have a meeting, then you wouldn't have a meeting. Also, the other comment two comments I'd like to make is that, one, leadership, I guess I need Molly to define who is the leadership. as vice president of this organization, I wasn't in on any of these discussions about that we were going to totally revise the bylaws, number one. Number two, the board itself got these on September 13th. Well, actually saw it on September 13th, got the actual copy on September 20th. So we haven't had an opportunity as a board to discuss these. And I think that's another issue, because I think the board needs to have time to digest them and then make that input. And I think that we need to do this in a process so that the House approves doing the revision, then we can put the revision together. And I heard you say something, Molly, that I hadn't heard before, that you are in favor of doing a separate meeting, a separate House of Delegates to, after these are looked at, revised, if they will be revised, and then have a separate House of
15
Delegates
seconds left
to actually vote. Thank you.
Kathy, your comment about the annual meeting of members, however our annual meeting, however we want to coin that phrase, I think that that's a great provision to add to this. And I think that that's part of our conversations with everyone, is to get that feedback from across the board and people's thoughts on that. So easy, conversations for us to have leaders of additions to add to the bylaws committee, or to add to the bylaws themselves. I have no desire to bring this on anyone. That's not the point of any of this. The point is to move. The point is to make progress. The point is to not 7 months from now still be talking about this. That's my goal, because that's how we continue to develop this organization, is to not have 47 emails about whether Jay could offer a promotion for new members. We need to go do it. You think that's going to attract money? This is my strategy. This is my plan. Rock and roll. That's the kind of changes we need to be making so that we can start coming out of the hole and we can really start implementing new strategies. People have asked me if there's programs for discounted scrubs and things like that. They already exist. They've existed for years. Why aren't people using them? We need to be focusing our time and energy and talent on that, and not on whether this falls within our procedures and that sort of thing. Again, bylaws are for protection. They're not to hinder growth. And I've seen organizations get bogged down in this. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, as long as it's not hindering the financial health of the organization. So that's, I want us to be thinking at a 1,000-foot level on that, and really what's best for our vision and not where we're coming from. Having another meeting, if people, here's the thing, we send them to everybody. Do they read them? Who the hell knows? Some people do, some people don't, right? So we can take months to review these, and they're still going to look at them 8 minutes before the call starts. So kicking the can down the road, sure, we can do it. We can do another meeting. We can wait till next year. We can do all the things. But what does it do to benefit ADAA? And that's what we're trying to do here.
Lynn Pooley.
Yes, thank you. A couple of questions. One is I totally agree with the idea of streamlining a lot of the very specific procedural items that have been in our bylaws and everything else for a million years. I'm also from Virginia with Carol Walsh. We've been struggling with this for years. So I think it's time to relook at in the 21st century, if that's what you want to, approach it from. And I also think our whole structure in actuality has changed. And you're correct about getting the number of volunteers, and the prerequisites are onerous. We're going through that in Virginia, finding somebody to take over for our board positions. So I agree with the approach to it. One thing I'd like to know is if you propose to move from the House of Delegates system to General Assembly, to move procedures, to move any kind of legislation or anything else. I don't know what kind of luck you've had, but even as we have sent membership letters to members, and we have an AOL address, and we have a website, and we have a Facebook page, and we have not heard crap from anybody. So I totally understand the idea that let's move it to General Assembly so that the membership can approve things. I'd like to know what we can do to make sure the membership actually participates. And then the other thing, and please do not take this the wrong way, I have no problem with the management, but we've been burned. I suspect somewhere in the bottom of some of these people's comments is what kind of oversight do we have as we put the responsibility in some other people's hands?
Lynn, that's very fair. That's very, very, very fair. And I do know your history, and I've definitely had conversations about it, and I'm sorry you guys have gone through all that. So by moving actually to this structure, it provides more oversight because your board of trustees is your governing body. They are your active leadership day by day. They are the ones, Betty and Sue and Kathy are the ones dealing with Jay and programs and emailing me every single day. They're engaged in all these activities because they're doing it. So they're the ones voting monthly during their meetings on any needed votes. So it actually engages more oversight in people that protect you than the House of Delegates structure. Engaging the membership is meeting them where they need to be, and that's going to take time to build credibility. They've tuned out because they haven't been heard. So they're paying their dues begrudgingly, most of them, doing a little CE here and there, but really, what is the package? We need to build what their value is. So when you're a member, you know 1, 2, 3, this is why I'm doing it. And when you're talking to a dental assistant, 1, 2, 3 is what you're getting out of it. And that's what we need. That's what's lacking. It's all over the place. You go to your website, it's here, it's here, it's here. So how do we build that cohesively? And that's the next step in this process. And then you start to attract more, you start to engage in more, they start to have fun. We do things that are fun for them as opposed to just cumbersome and draining of time. You know, that I'm on calls where people got their cameras off. They're done. They can't do this. They got to cook dinner. So those are the kind of things that we need to look at.
Are you taking examples from other organizations that you've worked with?
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple clients that have gone from pretty apathetic members to I am turning down people to sit on committees right now. And it's a great problem to have. So it can be done.
Thank you.
Sure. Betty, was there anyone else who had hands up you wanted to call on?
I saw, I think Rhonda still has her hand up on my screen, but I don't think she's.
Looks like she was able to unmute.
I can't raise my hand, unfortunately. I have a question.
Okay, who's speaking?
It's Carol Walsh, Illinois, the original. We have to throw that in. We got to throw it in, guys. A little laughter in it.
I'm considered the other.
My question is, it was published in the as the amended bylaws on the site that, and I don't see any provision for a General Assembly, or I'm missing it on the new bylaws. And so how can you say we're going to have a General Assembly if there's no provision for it in the bylaws that you posted?
Sure, and I'm kind of looking through it. See, it's under the voting section is you're voting as General Assembly. So I'm honestly, I'm trying to remember what page it's on, but it's listed in there. So maybe if you do like a word search for assembly, you can kind of see where it's listed, and I can, follow up and send you the page later, but that's how it's outlined in here. Is vote by General Assembly, and the majority is, the chosen candidate. So, your General Assembly is voting for your leadership as your trustees. Your trustees is voting for your organizational implementation, and then that is reported back to the general membership. So that's kind of, and that's why an annual meeting of members is great. but should be focusing on what the organization is doing and what are new opportunities and things like that. So it is in there in that format. If we need to make it a little clearer, we can.
I do say it says it may be, so it's not a guarantee that you're going to have it. So that's going to be at the board's discretion.
The annual meeting of members?
A general assembly. I just found it and it says may have a general assembly. It's not say it's a requirement.
Yeah, I mean, we could make it a requirement, but I'd use a year like COVID. Maybe it was a year, we didn't want to do it. Maybe the board said there, again, you can make it, you can say it has to, shall, but I mean, you'd have to have 2/3 of majority say they didn't want to. So if it was if somebody was really trying to throw things under the bus, you wouldn't get 2/3 of people to do that. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it, but we can certainly look at making it a requirement.
I just feel that by having that as a requirement, you're giving more of a voice to the membership. I've been in this been a member for, I'm a lifetime member. I've been served on the board, trustee, secretary, so I know what it is to have a voice. And at this point, I feel you're taking away some of the voice of the members.
It's a very valid point to say has to, and then I hear exactly what you're saying about giving them more. Sure. I mean, I can certainly make that edit and propose it to everybody. Betty, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the wording, like you said, it's if we use may, it's you're not tied to it, but yet you can. I mean, I don't ever see this board not choosing to have an annual session. Actually, everybody I know wants to have an in-person annual session. So I don't think that that the board would ever vote to not have an annual session. But whoever thought COVID would be here? Whoever thought it would hit the country, the whole world like it did last year? This gives us the option and flexibility to where the bylaws is not tying our hands to where we can't grow and progress and change things and become an organization like some of these other organizations. They have grown with the times while we've kind of been left on the back burner. And I think it's time that we make some changes, and maybe some of those are drastic changes to where we can move forward. So,
and to anyone sending comments, this is a work in progress. This is a collaboration. We are doing this together. We can make edits to this draft. This is a proposed draft that we will continue to share with members. And we want them to, see that we're having conversations. And again, this is the purpose of our town hall. This is the purpose of everyone, getting together and offering feedback. And, adding things like the annual meeting of members is an important point that we will add to this draft, because that is good feedback to engage from individuals. So, this is working together. This isn't us versus them versus old versus new. Do we care about ADAA and the future of dental assistants, or don't we? And what is the best way to get there? And that's our whole purpose tonight. So I appreciate the comments that I'm getting from individuals through the chat. So I wanted to make sure I addressed that collectively with everyone.
Okay. Kim Bland, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few things. If anyone knows who I am, I've always been a proponent of change for this organization. Proposed many changes for the organization that haven't been accepted. And I do agree there needs to be some changes. I've always agreed with the fact that the Board of Trustees needs to be given the power to move administratively when necessary to further the organization and to increase its footprint in the world. However, I do want to make sure, like you said, I know this is a collaboration. I don't want this pushed too quickly on the members. I want everyone who wants the opportunity to hear what's going on, to discuss it, have that opportunity. We only have 51 members here today. It's a Thursday night. People probably on the West Coast are just getting off work and they haven't the opportunity to tune in. and make their voices known. We need to be able to have many town hall meetings at various different times to give individuals a chance to speak about it. One thing I do want to make sure that we do preserve for the member is their rights to speak on issues regarding the profession. I don't want a board of 20 people making policy statements on behalf of the dental assistants in this country when only those 20 people are the ones being heard. We need to be able to have a means for the states to have the opportunity to have the power to call a General Assembly meeting if they feel it's so necessary that they have it. So we need to have some type of a provision for those states to also interject and say, hey, we need to call the members of this organization together for discussions, not just because the board wants to do it. So those are some of the points that I want to bring up, and then perhaps schedule many of these types of meetings at different times to get people involved.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing that.
And it looks like Karen Minka has her hand up. Karen, you'll have to unmute yourself. Karen.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think I'm a Verizon commercial. You know, all of the states have been doing all we can to keep our states together. We've been losing locals left and right around here, so it's difficult, but the members do not see any benefit of even why do they want to belong to the ADAA. We used to have much more presented to them. They were part of our association. Do we even contact corporations that used to donate to us, support us, sponsor us? We have nothing to give them. We have CE, that's just about it. So I guess I'm in question of how do we get these members back if we can't actually give them anything for the dues that they're paying?
That's the next part of this process. It really is. And that's, you know, part of looking at the strategies of why are you losing members? Well, it's a culmination effect. And it's not just, and I want to say, it's not just ADAA's fault by any stretch. It's a phenomenon across associations across the board. That's what I started the conversation with, is they don't do it out of obligation anymore. It's the Amazon effect. What is in it for me? I want it this way right now. And what do we as an organization, we have to look at that and say, okay, well, what is it that we can provide to them? And throw out the stuff that didn't work and really develop that strategy of one or two things that really matters to them. So, you know, that is all a part of this growth process. You know, we are coming in this, you know, again, 5 months into it, you know, learning and offering the services that we can provide. We have a staff of 25 people that are skilled in everything from video production to course development. Those are things we bring to the table that are going to be of value to your members. We need to implement those. And I need to get your infrastructure right I need to stop the bleeding of financials in order to start moving forward with programmatic development.
So where are our revenues coming from?
I'm sorry?
Where are our revenues coming from?
Predominantly dues is the majority of ADA's revenues.
Are they never being asked from any corporation to do anything?
Again, that predates me, and that's a strategy that I will work with Jay directly on as what that'll look like forward and what corporations you reached out to before and what corporations we should re-engage and reach out to. That's a part of all of it. But again, something that is what we need to be looking at futuristically. Haven't really had the time yet.
Molly, can I say that when Betty and I, obviously conventions have just started to open up, and that Betty and I both went around at the AGD meeting and the Florida meeting to talk to various vendors, various companies, and many of them too are in the position we're in, is in that they're not getting the revenues either that they got pre-COVID. And companies like Ivoclair, which is in Buffalo, when reaching out to them to host a dental meeting for the University of Buffalo Dental School that they've done for the past 25 years. They've declined this year because their too revenues are down. So the companies, many of these companies are in the same position we're in, is that financially they're not back to where they were pre-COVID. And at some point that too is the things that the president does when they go to meetings, is reach out to different corporations. But COVID has hurt them also.
Robin has her hand up.
I would have to respectfully refute that statement. I just attended the ADAA conference in September and they turned exhibitors away.
I wanted to comment on, Diane, you sent a comment out to everyone. I love this. I think that morphing that general annual session into something that has content and usefulness and organization about the business of ADAA, but also, industry updates and top things happening. And I think that is super cool. And I think that would be of value to a lot of people. So I want to thank you for taking the time to type that. Thumbs up.
Okay, is there anyone that has not already had the opportunity to speak that would like to speak? Because we have like 2 minutes left. So I don't see anyone that hasn't already spoken.
Rhonda, want to try again? She still has her hand up.
Rhonda, she typed in the chat, could she email questions? So I don't know if she's having.
And yes, and I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to, it's hard to type and talk at the same time sometimes. I am happy to accept any direct email questions, phone calls, anything like that. Amy, if you don't mind typing my email address and phone number in the chat for me. Again, I'm here to work this through with you all. I'm here to help. I'm here to show you what's possible, but also gain from your insights and where you've been and what it is that we can really make to make this work, and make this organization grow. I know that that's Jay's goal. I know that that's the leadership's goal, and kind of what can we do. So please feel free to send me any questions or comments, and a lot of you send me private messages, and I can respond to those, and I appreciate it.
I see one more hand up, Suzanne Hyde, and this will be our last question or comment. Suzanne, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Hi. I've been listening to the meeting and it seems pretty encumbersome, but one of the suggestions maybe based on what I hear from a lot of dental assistants is that the sheer cost of being a member is an issue. I know that that's not what this meeting is about, but maybe perhaps if we lowered the cost of membership, we could gain more volume of members. Perhaps. Yeah. So I guess it's more of a comment than because between the annual, the national fee and the local fee for the state, to be quite honest, from where I started a dozen years ago as a student member to where I am now, I happen to agree. Really, what's the value? I do my CE through this organization, but as far as I do it because I'm proud and of what I do for what I chose to do for a living as a dental assistant, and I think it's important and valuable to participate in the organizations that support our career and choice of career and give us a voice. But the rest of it, I have to admit, we need to move forward.
Yeah, Suzanne, that's a tough coin, because on the flip side, if you lower the price, do people think that there's enough value in it, right? There's that famous study done on why did Georgetown cupcakes charge $3 per cupcake and have lines around the door. People see the value in it, even though the cupcake tastes the same as what you can get somewhere else. They've sold the experience. They've sold that they want to be a part of that. So how do we look at what ADA offers as something that's people want to join as opposed to people feel that they have to join? And is that better value? Is that a lower price point? Is that diversification of service? Is that, additional benefits based on level of joining? Those are the structures that we need to be looking at and seeing really what it is that's going to attract in the marketplace, and talking to people like you, talking to people that are just getting out of school, talking to people that have been doing this for 30 years. Why is that working, and what do they care about? And those are focus groups, those are surveys, those are one-on-one conversations. We need that data. We need to get that rolling so that we can change how people perceive this organization to be valued.
I understand. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a background. So I am an RDA, an ortho RDA. I'm based in New Jersey. I've been an instructor at the local vocational technical school, and I'm currently a clinical training manager for a fairly large DSO in the state of New Jersey. We have 80 offices in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. So when I say that I'm hearing this, I'm not hearing this from one or two friends who worked 10 years ago with me as a DA. I'm referencing hundreds, if not thousands of DAs, CDAs, RDAs, ortho RDAs. And so I understand that there's room for doing research, but possibly corporations and schools can also, possibly if it were available to them at a price point that was economical, they could even offer it as an employee perk.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I can appoint you head of the recruitment task force if you'd like.
Thanks.
Okay. I said that would be our last question or comment for the evening, because we've reached the time of 8:03. Just one observation, and looking at the group that's here tonight, when you look at the average age of us, we're obviously not the younger generation. Not to offend anyone, but we are the more mature members, and we have no 20, 30, probably not even 40, maybe one or two 40 in their 40s here, but we're all, we need to replace ourselves with some young blood, and that's, we've got to change somehow, some way to draw the younger generation in. So, well, thank you everyone for your time. I appreciate it. And like Molly said, she'll be glad to talk with you by email or by phone if you want to reach out to her for any more questions. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks at annual session. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.